Hi everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the AMA session of InfoEdge Ventures AI Hackathon 2024. I am Shweta and I hope you all are excited for today's session. Let's quickly take a look at the agenda first for today. So first we will discuss about the prototype submission guidelines that you have to follow once you land on the Hack to Skill dashboard after registering for the hackathon. Then we have with us two very special guest speakers from the InfoEdge team. They will talk about what is expected out of your prototype that you're submitting. Then we'll also discuss some of the AI prototype use cases that will help you give some context around your prototype submission. Next, we will have a discussion around AI, how AI is changing everything, and at last, we will have a Q&A where you can put up your questions and the speakers will take them up. So, starting with the prototype submission guidelines, for those who might not have explored the dashboard yet, I'll quickly show you how it's done. Just one second. Yes. So once you register for the hackathon, this is where you land. So the first that you can see the 4 problem statements that they are there. But it is up to you. I mean, the hackathon is open-ended. You can choose the open innovation in AI, which is the 4th one, and the challenge is wide open. Any solution that leverages AI is welcome. However, if you want to select any particular field or anything, that is something that you can mention once you select any of these problem statements, and then land onto the mandatory questions. So first, for example, I have selected open innovation in AI. So once I select that, this is where I land. Here, the next step is that you have to create a team of 2 to 4 members. So if you are a solo team member until now, since solo participation is not allowed, so make sure that you invite at least one of your friends to join you in this hackathon so that you can form a team of at least 2 members. Then next, this is here you can download the sample PPT, which will include many details. For example, brief about the idea, the opportunities, list of features, and etc. If you do not have a team, or maybe you want to join a team which already exists, you can just click here, click on Explore Public Teams, and here you will find all the teams that are listed publicly. And if you do not want to form a team of your own, you can form any of the teams which are already existing. You can just click on Request to Join, and the team lead will get your request and may approve it. But it is mandatory to form a team of a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4 team members. So this is your second step, and once you have done that, you can click on the submission. Since I have not yet formed a team, you can see I get the pop-up notification that to unlock submission, I need to form a team of at least 2 members. So once I do that, I can submit my idea by clicking on this submission where it is showing submission pending thing. Coming back to our slides. Okay, so next, I'm thrilled to invite our guest speakers. Ankit Garg, he is the Vice President at the InfoEdge Ventures team, and Rishabh Katiyar, he is the Principal at the InfoEdge Venture team. Welcome, Ankit and Rishabh, over to you.
Are we audible, Shweta?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, thanks, Shweta, and thanks everyone for joining today. What we can perhaps do is take a minute to reintroduce InfoEdge Ventures for folks who are new, and then we will talk about certain things that you mentioned in the slide. So we are an early stage fund. We have been investing for the past 17 years. From an investment philosophy standpoint, we like to invest in technology first and technology enabled businesses. That is what is our bread and butter. And within that, we invest across sectors. So e-commerce, software, fintech, EV, gaming, and whatnot. For the past few years, we've been very excited about use of AI across all of these sectors, right? And we continue to meet very exciting companies. We have invested in about 7 or 8 companies over the past 3-4 years. But what has happened over the past year and a half is that I think the overall innovation, the pace of innovation in AI has accelerated significantly. The number of companies, the number of young teams that we continue to meet every day has increased significantly. And that's also the intent behind doing this hackathon, wherein we said we're very excited to see what folks like you think about what could be done using AI. I think first agenda for today is to, I think, speak about what we are looking at when we are evaluating some of the ideas and prototypes that all of you will submit. See, when we look at any company from an investment standpoint, I think that is the lens that we'll use to evaluate these ideas, right? Now, at an early stage, what are some of those things that we try to look at? I think the first and foremost is there a real problem that you are solving? Right? I think eventually the kind of technologies available today, the kind of technologies available 10 years ago, 20 years ago, very different. But to build a business out of it, I think the first and foremost, which is required, is whether there's a real need that you're solving. So that is something that we'll certainly look for. Secondly, we acknowledge that the amount of time that you guys have is fairly short. In that amount of time, what we'll try to look for is that have you come up with an idea or a prototype that seems to be solving that problem? Does that approach make sense? Thirdly, I think there are very few problem statements for which users or enterprises or customers don't have a way to solve them, right? People tend to solve them. Of course, they probably do it themselves. If we are talking about businesses, they'll perhaps do it on Excel. They'll put humans to solve those problems, right? So what we are trying to look for in your product is how better is it compared to the status quo. If the problem is not being solved currently, and if there are a few products and services out there which already tend to solve this problem, is your product significantly better, right? So these are the three lenses that we'll use from a lens of how sophisticated your underlying technology is. We acknowledge that you don't have a lot of time, so we'll of course try to look for differentiation in terms of how you're trying to do it, but we wouldn't rely a lot on whether you have come up with something really complex, right? The idea is to see here whether you have identified a problem which can be solved using AI. Over the past 1.5, 2 years, what has happened is there's a lot of open source technologies within AI also, right? So we would in fact urge you to use some of those to come up with a prototype. Again, we don't expect something really complex as long as it is solving the problem today and you have some idea of how the prototype would evolve. If you are given an opportunity to build a business out of it, how would it look like a year out, 2 years out, and 3 years out? And from a sector perspective within AI, and Ankit will speak more about it. Again, I think there are 3 or 4 ideas or broad areas that have been mentioned on the slide, but of course, we would ask you to keep a very open mind. You could think of any space, agri-tech, EV, e-commerce, software, B2C, B2B, and any business model in which AI could be used to solve a real problem. It could be centered toward India, it could be a global problem. So we are actually quite open, and I would urge everyone to also be very open about when they think about problem statements and customers that they would want to solve for. Happy to sort of Shraddha, take any questions if they were already submitted, or if we can take questions like.
So generally the questions will come up in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Meanwhile, we can discuss some of the use cases which are AI.
Got it. Firstly, thanks everyone for taking out time for this session. See, over the last 1.5 to 2 years, and obviously, people who know about AI, they understand that AI has been ongoing for more than 5 to 6 decades now. It's not a technology which is born 2 years or 3 years earlier, right? What has happened, I think, over the last 2 to 3 years is that with the launch of ChatGPT and, just human beings realizing the potential of AI, with using these tools, once they got democratized, they got free to use. I think everyone within the enterprise level, within the organizations, they now have a much more open mind to adopting some of these technologies in their ecosystem. That is one part of the problem statement which has been solved quite beautifully with some of these technologies getting open sourced and being used by people inherently. ChatGPT by itself got more than 100 million sort of users within 2 months of launch, and that just talks about how fast the technology has taken grab of the people. See, in terms of use case perspective, we are seeing multiple kinds of applications, and obviously we are not going into the foundational models or the compute hardware sort of use cases, because most of those developments are happening outside of India, and they also need significant amounts of capital and other sort of supports for you to build successfully in those spaces. But just talking purely from application perspective, I will broadly try to categorize it into three major categories. First is purely the horizontal applications, which are working with new sort of modalities. It could be video, it could be photo, it could be audio, etc., etc. Right? So. While the overall market for some of these technologies is very large, and obviously most of these technologies are backed by innovation inherently in the technology itself, and not so much by the GTM and other things, right? However, we it's important to understand that this is not a space where there will be many players existing eventually, right? So you will need significant amounts of capital to fight against the competition globally in this space. So horizontal applications is something where we feel, and we are seeing in India, there are a few players who are trying to tackle that problem statement, but maybe some of the players in US, UK, where there is a better risk appetite and much more capital available to do the R&D there. I think they are much more suited to work in those sort of place. Second part is more of enterprise applications, which target specific business functions within an enterprise. You can talk of sales, you can talk of marketing, legal, customer service, etc., etc. Right? Now, kind of similar to first category, but slightly more nuanced because you're solving for a specific business function there. Again, multiple players, a lot of funding has gone into this specific segment over the last 2 to 3 years, especially in Western markets. India has seen a few players emerge, but again, here again the competition is at a global level, and eventually in a few years you may see a lot of consolidation happening and a lot of funding which has gone into some of the companies not working out too well in this space, so to say. I think what we are most interested in, and given the amount of time you guys would have in building some of these applications, I think what we are more interested in is the vertical application side. And most of our inherent investments are also focused in this space, so to say, where you try to choose a specific sector, choose a specific problem statement which you're looking to solve within that sector, and just basis the proprietary data or the advanced fine-tuning algorithms, etc., that you use in the architecture, you are able to solve that specific problem statement in that sector much more beautifully than existing incumbents or new entrants, so to say. So I think overall, I would like to say, because today enterprises are much more open to adopting these technologies and trying them out in their ecosystem, you might see a lot of adoption very early, even if you are catering to different use cases. But what we as an investor are more focused on is how you think of long-term defensibility of such a business. That's where we are seeing a lot of AI plays, etc., which are scaling quite well now, may not continue to scale or may commoditize at some stage as AI gets more mature with time.
Ankit, you could perhaps talk about a few of our companies in terms of what they do to just give people a flavor.
Yeah. So, see, within the vertical AI space, apart from a few investments which we have recently made, which we can't disclose the names about, they are more targeted towards specific modalities and specific sectors, so to say. But talking about some of the past investments we have done, for example, Attentive AI, so basically, they are focused on specific use case within the. I think
just to add to what Ankit said. So we'll try to speak about a few of our companies to give you a flavor of what we tend to like and what people are using AI to solve problems, right? So Attentive AI uses geospatial data, uses AI to refine it, and to do what exactly? They help landscapers in US, right? So there are several landscapers in US, right? Probably thousands of them, and they often get. How do they get business? They would get a call from a customer that I have this parcel of land which needs landscaping, right? And before Attentive AI, or if they are not using Attentive, they would send out a guy who will physically survey the entire landscape, take measurements, come back, and take about 2 days to get back to the customer with a quote. Right? This entire process takes about 48 hours. After attentive uses geospatial data and uses AI to do that in perhaps 2 hours without any human intervention. You don't need to physically send out a guy to do those measurements. And the turnaround time, because of all of this, has reduced from 48 hours to perhaps 2 hours. So that's one example. We have another company called Aftershoot, which has built their own models to help photographers to edit and cull photos in 1 hour, which would otherwise take about 10 hours with heavy duty softwares. There's one company which is using AI to put intelligence in sort of robots which are used in factory floors. There's another which is helping e-commerce companies again do some of their process like cataloging, inventory management, etc. use AI. I think within these 4 companies also, as you can imagine, these are very diverse use cases and across industries. Some of the other companies also again tend to use AI either by businesses or customers to solve problems across several industries.
Thank you, Rishabh and Ankit. Should we start with the questions now that we are getting in the comment section?
Yeah, sure, we can.
Um, Is it visible on the screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Uh,
What kind of test automation are you looking forward to? Unit testing, end-to-end testing? Maybe that would clarify. A company called Gurugram is also trying to do this. So probably you can check that out. If you are looking,
There is a follow-up question from the same user. I think this is
yeah.
what they say. The user listing is revealing usability issues.
right. So the company that I mentioned, GoCodio, actually is trying to solve this problem. So you can check that out.
Okay.
Also, there are tools like AutoFlow, which are also trying to address usability kind of issues, front-end usability issues that you're talking about. So you can check that out.
And in the new age of Gen AI sort of applications, I think the testing ecosystem will also evolve a lot, because the kind of testing that you need to do for Gen AI applications varies a lot from traditional software sort of testing. So there we have come across some of the new age startups which are looking to solve and automate testing for AI specific applications, Gen AI specific applications. You can probably check out a company called Maxim AI. I think they are looking to build a process around this.
Okay. Thank you. Next is, what are the key points you look for in a startup before you decide to invest in them?
Sure. So, like I mentioned, I think at an early stage, what we try to look for is a few things: whether the problem that is being solved for by the founder is a real problem. Has it not been solved so far? And if not, then what are the key reasons? Does your product or service seem to solve that problem today? And if it only solves the problem partly today, would it in a year or two, when the product gets fully built out, solve the problem? And would users/customers end up paying for that? That is number two. And number three, how different is vis-a-vis compared to other products and services? Is there a way to scale that product and service from the first few customers to thousands and lakhs of customers? I think broadly these three things, and of course there are nuances depending on the stage of the product and business that we are evaluating. If it's at a prototype stage, then we'll tend to again answer some of these questions in a more qualitative manner. If the business has been running for a few years, then we'll of course tend to look at certain financial metrics and see if all of this is translating into real revenues, real profits, etc. for the company.
I think just adding on to Rishabh's point, see, one of the important things, because we are increasingly looking at very vertical sort of applications within the team metrics, we ideally want to look at both the AI sort of capabilities because of the dearth of AI talent globally, as well as some expertise around just deeper nuances in that specific sector or that problem statement, because the better understanding you have of that sector or the problem, the better you can just automate that process entirely using AI.
Thank you. Next is how much would be the valuation split between actual functionality and versus the innovative nature of the idea?
Perhaps I can address this. See, of course, I think the evaluation of prototype will be a function of how complex the prototype should have been to be able to solve that problem. Sometimes you can perhaps put together a prototype in 2 days to demonstrate that this will solve the problem. Sometimes the product in itself might be so complex that it is very difficult to put together a prototype. So we'll take a call accordingly, right? If the prototype is very difficult to put together, even if it's not mature enough, I think it's okay. We'll of course factor that in while evaluating. But if it is simple to put together, if you can perhaps find a way wherein you can take 2 or 3 days to put together, then we'll also rely on prototype. Again, I think it's very difficult to judge whether an idea is impressive or not without a prototype in place, right? So I'll also put that caveat. So I would urge people to put out a prototype. I think even if it's not sophisticated or mature, it's completely okay.
And just adding on a bit here, see, we also do understand the limitations given the time, etc. So what we also want to see is that we founders understanding the current capabilities as well as the limitations of today's AI, right? So the path from prototype to developing a foolproof product of solving that specific problem statement, is it in accordance with today's capabilities of today's AI, or is it dependent on AI getting smarter or compute costs getting cheaper, or maybe it will be more ROI driven, maybe 3 to 4 years down the line? I think that's also one of the equation which we try to see between the prototype and the actual.
Thank you. Next is, will the teams have access to InfoEdge Ventures resources and network to scale the product, which we have built in this hackathon, but after the hackathon?
No, for sure. For the promising ones actually, and especially for the ones which are more B2B in nature, we will be very open to connecting the teams with some of our portfolio companies, and they can and if those companies also like the product, then they could perhaps end up landing a few customers. And if not, they can definitely get some feedback from some of those early pilots, etc. Right? I think that is very valuable for companies which are trying to build B2B applications.
Also, I can add something here. So our plan is like the top 30 teams that we shortlist. So we'll connect them with our sort of investment team to get some initial feedback before we sort of shortlist to the top 15 who would actually be presenting on the demo day. And in fact, on the demo day, the first 3 hours or so will be marked for sort of a business challenge where our investment team will be going around helping them sort of think through the business side of the prototype that they have developed. So if you're in the top 30, and you can expect to engage with us a lot and get some real feedback.
Thank you. Next, can the solution be a niche to particular subject, like restricted for India or something?
Yeah, of course. I think Ankit also spoke about it. In fact, I think in the amount of time that you guys have, perhaps it would be easier to build a niche product / solution. So I think very open. And within India also, I think, like I said, it can be very focused within a subsector. It can be a very small problem in, let's say, agri-tech or financial services or SaaS, right? So it can be as restrictive, right? That's not a problem. In fact, we would urge you to be restrictive in how you are looking at problems.
Yeah, but just adding, we would parallelly also urge some of the folks to, while they're restricting their idea to specific use case, etc., it's important to also reconcile that with just a quick sort of a TAM calculation of that problem statement itself, right? Is the problem big enough to solve? That should always be backed up with choosing the right niche, etc. So that there's a potential to build a big enough business in that space, practically.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Next is, our model's predictions are not interpretable. How can we improve the interpretability of the AI model?
Sorry, I'll just need to understand the problem better. Not interpretable, is it?
Is it to do with explainability or something else?
Yeah.
If Rushdie could clarify, what does interpretable mean here?
So, meanwhile, Rishabh replies to us. We can move forward to another question. Okay. InfoEdge will just come as investor or strategic partner for GTM or like both?
I think there was a similar question earlier, which we covered. Basically, for the promising companies, right, and for the top few companies, what we'll do is we'll of course share our inputs. And for B2B applications, we'll be very happy to connect with some of our portfolio companies, right? And I think some teams might end up finding customers, and if not customers, then they would get critical feedback from potential customers slash prospects. So from a GTM perspective, I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, and just to add, if at all we come in as an investor, right, after the hackathon ends and we decide to invest in a particular idea, then of course we work very closely with our portfolio companies and offer a range of network guidance and all of that. So that strategic partnership will be in place if we were to come in as investors.
Okay, thank you. Next is bootstrap startup based out of tier 2 city gets less credibility compared to based out of tier 1. I think this is not important when it is coming to evaluation, right? Whether you are from tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3.
Not at all. No, I don't. Not at all. Not at all. I think it's the merit of the idea, product.
And we have invested quite a lot in tier 2, tier 3 located startups. So that's not a concern.
Got it. Will there be any legal support provided during the incubation period?
I'm not sure.
If we were to invest in that case.
Sure. Of course, we have an in-house legal team which can guide if we were to invest during the incubation or setting up companies.
Now, mostly the questions that I can see are more or less what we have already answered.
Yeah. So maybe Shweta, then what we could do is, if there are any logistical questions, you can take those here. I think broadly we have addressed all the aspects, and of course next week or so, we'll see there is a lot of other queries coming in, and we can schedule perhaps another AMA or something of that sort. So, or maybe with the shortlisted team, so we can decide then. But yeah, for now, I guess we are good, right?
Yes, I just saw one more question if you have time to answer.
Sure.
Does the idea have to be B2B focused, or will B2C also have we can submit that as well?
No, I think feel free to choose an idea basis your understanding, whatever you have recognized or identified so far. Right? There are no restrictions vis-a-vis being B2B or B2C.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ankit and Rishabh, for your time.
Okay. Thanks, Shweta, and thanks everyone for joining. We
Thank
look
you.
forward to the submissions.
Definitely.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. So to all the participants, if you have any other queries, feel free to email us at support@happiskill.com. Or if you haven't already, then join our Discord channel and you can also ask your queries there. Thank you everyone for joining the session. Thanks again for our speakers, and we look forward to your prototype submissions.